Hey everyone, it's me, Shannon Joy, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from Facebook Live, also from our affiliate WKAL 1450 AM in Utica. I'm so glad to be here with you guys today. Again, week 3, broadcasting from the Christmas bunker here in my dining room. I am a radio show without a terrestrial home right now, but we are doing everything that we can, everything in my power to find a new terrestrial home for the Shannon Joy Show, and I want to welcome all of you to the program today. For those of you listening on WKAL, this might sound a little bit different than my typical broadcast because I am broadcasting from Facebook Live, so I have a lot of interaction with my friends on Facebook, and just bear with us as we continue to build this program, build up a new audience, and chart a new path for the Shannon Joy Show, and also for all of you, those of you who love this program and have supported me over the past couple weeks. I want to thank all of you. We have a big show today. We are going to be talking about Jailbreak. We're going to be talking about the Marxist farm bill that was passed by the Senate yesterday and is moving its way through the House. All of this happening amidst the circus sideshow that you're seeing being played out on Capitol Hill between Donald Trump and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. That's right. While the circus goes on, they are passing really, really yucky bills in Congress, and they're fixing to do so again on probably Christmas Eve. So rather than focusing on the squirrels and all of the stories that don't matter to any of you or any of your lives, we're going to focus on what is actually happening, the meat and potatoes of legislation that comes out of Capitol Hill. That is the mission of this program. It has been the mission of this program for so many years. So I'm going to go on and welcome some of you on Facebook. Hey, everyone. Who do we have? Conrad Allen is with us. Hey, Conrad, thank you for joining the program. Linda Rice Jones, Christian Chamberlain in the house. Cherie Finch has joined us. Mary Lou Ferguson Anderson, always a regular on the program. If you guys are watching right now, please help me out and share this program on Facebook and Twitter with all of your friends, family, and liberty-oriented groups. It's how we grow the viewership and continue to push forth the radio program. Who else do we have? Madison, Millard, Carter, Lynn Strawn, Davenport, and Kevin Jones have joined. Mary Lou says, found you, Shannon. Well, I'm glad you found me, Mary Lou. I'm happy to be here. Christian says, hey, Shannon. Feel free to ask me any questions on Facebook Live. I love to answer your questions. I love to hear feedback from all of you and understand what your perspectives are. I say all the time, I learn so much more from my audience, I think, than the audience even learns from me. You guys are a wealth of information. A lot of you out there are researchers, and you look into the policy. You have expertise in all different areas, whether it's foreign policy, domestic policy, healthcare, education. I rely upon all of you for good information, and you guys always provide that. Christian Chamberlain said, great job on the end of year DACE roundtable. Thanks, Christian. I've been on the Blaze 3 times in the past 5 days. I was on with Steve Dace and the fellas on the roundtable on the Blaze on Friday. I also joined them for 2 shows, the end of year 2-hour extravaganza of the Dace show, and we went through all of the news of 2018 and gave out awards. It was a wonderful opportunity, and I love my collaboration with the folks at the Blaze, also Steve Dace and Daniel Horowitz as well. Daniel had an amazing podcast. For those of you who don't know Daniel, he is the senior editor at Conservative Review. He also has a weekly podcast called The Conservative Conscience. And Daniel is what I call an American treasure. Daniel is doing the hard work that no other journalist or media pundit in the U.S. is doing today. He's actually reading legislation. He is wicked brilliant. I don't know how he does it. He has 3 kids. He's exhausted like I am, very independent, and I rely upon him when I talk about jailbreak, criminal justice reform, spending bills, budget bills. Today we're going to discuss the farm bill. A lot of my analysis rests on his research. He's connected with experts all over the country. He has connections down on the border in terms of border crossings and the invasion that we currently have at the U.S. border. a lot of this comes from Daniel's connections to border agents and advocacy groups down in Texas, right along that border. And he has never, ever, ever disappointed me. I've been using his information now for over 2 years. And if Daniel Horowitz says that you can take it to the bank, today we're going to talk about some of the provisions, the felons and what kinds of felons are going to be eligible for release under this absolutely disastrous First Step Act. It's a criminal justice reform bill. I call it a justice deform bill because it aims to essentially consolidate power. This is the first step. So it aims to consolidate power right in the federal government when it comes to local policing and sheriff's departments. I call it Common Core for cops, and we're going to get into that a little bit using some of Daniel's most recent research. It's going to blow your socks off. It's going to shock and dismay you, and it should scare you because they will be releasing violent felons onto the streets of America. They can't control our border. They can't deport felons. No, the only thing that they can do, the Rhino progressive Unibrow in Washington, D.C., apparently, is simply release them into the public square. So let's see who else we have on here. Rosalind Downer has joined. David Leach is here. Here I am. David Leach is the strident conservative, another fellow that I trust right now. There are only a handful, maybe 2 dozen, 3 dozen voices that have weight across the U.S. that are telling the truth. They are following principle instead of politician or political party. And that's what we need right now in order to get the truth. Courtney is here. My producer Lee Newton-Rones has joined and has shared this. Please continue to share this out, guys. Let's see who else we have. Addie List has joined us. Bill Pavone. Hey, Bill, how are you? And all of our listeners from WKAL 1450 in Utica, Rome, welcome to you as well. So let's start here. We are in the waning days of 2012. Everyone's getting distracted. We're getting the holiday fever, buying those last minute presents, baking the cookies, doing the gingerbread houses, decorating the house. Maybe you're going to a caroling party or a company party, and it's that time of year where everyone just forgets about politics. And unfortunately, this is the time of year when the politicians do their dirtiest deeds. And this is what the Republicans, who still control the House and the Senate, plan to do, unfortunately, in the 2018 season of Christmas. Most of your favorite big talkers, pundits, journalists, your favorite media outlets, they're all just dialing it in or going on vacation. They're going to slip out for the next couple weeks, and you're not going to see a lot of coverage on legislation, especially not on Christmas Eve, which is usually when they pass some of the worst bills. But it's always convenient for those who legislate in Washington, D.C., because while the cat is away, the mice will play. And those rats in Washington, D.C., the Unibrow, and the Unibrow, for those of you who don't know, it is the ugly, gnarly coming together in the middle of the Democrat and Republican parties. I put out a statement just recently this week after observing both parties very closely for over a decade and following discernible policy outcome as opposed to political rhetoric. I'm convinced that Democrats and Republicans, at least at the leadership level, are working together, working in tandem, and they have been for quite some time. I think anyone who pays attention understands this. As long as government grows, as long as power is consolidated centrally in Washington, D.C., and as long as the Constitution is shredded and liberty is destroyed, the Democrats and Republicans will come together every single time. And the most recent evidence of this is the farm bill that was passed yesterday by the Senate, moving its way through the House. Daniel Horowitz likens it to Stalin's 5-year plans. And indeed, this farm bill has its roots in Marxism. It has its roots in communism, pseudo-socialism, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. But yes, 2018 is slipping away. We're moving into the holiday season, and leadership in the House, in the Senate, and the president, quite frankly, will be busily passing legislation. I call it a legislative stocking full of coal. In the darkness of the holiday frenzy. So what is on my radar right now and what should be on your radar? Really, it's 4 major pieces of legislation. First, we have a massive spending bill. This is going to include all of the pork, all of the funding of the legislation and the initiatives that were passed during the Obama administration that everyone hated when Obama was in power, but no one really seems to care about now that Republicans are in power. So apparently the big talkers on the right, the big media outlets on the right have a problem with Obamacare when it's passed by Obama. But when Obamacare is emboldened, expanded, and funded by Donald Trump and Republicans, well, we just don't hear anything about that. That's the hypocrisy on the right currently. And believe me, there's a lot of hypocrisy on the left. Unfortunately, right now, the left doesn't have any power. The power is consolidated. The trifecta of power is consolidated in Washington, D.C. among Republicans. So who should we be watching? Who should we be criticizing for continued funding of Planned Parenthood to the tune of $1.5 billion? Not Nancy Pelosi, not Chuck Schumer, not even Planned Parenthood. Could you blame Planned Parenthood for taking the $500 million that is allocated to them by Republicans, signed into legislation by this president? Of course they're going to take it. So the idea that conservatives would criticize Democrats at all over the past 2 years when they control every lever of power in Washington, D.C., not only the House, the Senate, and the presidency, but also most major governorships and state legislatures. The GOP hasn't enjoyed this amount of power in decades, and they've frittered it away. We all know this. And in addition to frittering it away, we've also seen a complete gutting of the conservative movement. Some of the conservative heroes, the conservative voices, the stalwarts who we always could count upon for a filibuster, for truth, to put out the truth about specific legislation. They have every conservative that goes up against Donald Trump or aligns with Donald Trump ends up a progressive. And the most recent example of this is Ted Cruz, who voted, sadly, for the Marxist farm bill that came out of the Senate yesterday. Mike Lee, Tom Cotton, Chuck Grassley, I think a few others voted against it. There were 13 in terms of the farm bill. There were 13 Republicans who voted against it. 100% of Democrat senators voted for the farm bill. What does that tell you about the farm bill? I was telling you about Daniel Horowitz. He had a great podcast yesterday. You can find him at Conservative Review or The Blaze. Just click on his podcast. And he laid out in very stark detail also the Unibrow. And he said in the program, it is true. It is absolutely true. We have a coming together of the Democrat-Republican parties, and they form a Unibrow. There is no discernible difference today between the two parties. And you know that by not listening to the rhetoric of Donald Trump or the rhetoric of your favorite politician. You know, they might talk about how much they love the babies. They might talk about fiscal responsibility and fiscal sanity. They might talk about a border wall and closing the border and enforcement, right? Law enforcement. They might talk about law and order. They talk a big game. But when it comes down to the actual words on the piece of papers, the legislation that they're voting for and then signing into power time and time and time again, they legislate like President Obama. They legislate like Democrats. And that's the truth. Those of you who are with me on this program and who have continued to stick with me on this program, you're here because you're not afraid of the truth. You see, a lot of folks in the conservative movement and on the right are more afraid of Democrats than they are of truth. And so they will continue to vote for the lesser of two evils. This is why we're in the position we're in today. They will continue to carry water for a Republican Party because they are so afraid of Democrats. When in fact, the Republican Party they're morphing into Democrats in front of our very eyes with every bill, every piece of legislation, every psychotic spending bill. They are turning into progressive Democrats before our very eyes. And it's as if it's not happening, right? The conservative movement doesn't know about it because the other lever of power, conservative media, won't talk about it. And when I talk about conservative media, I mean big talk radio. I call them the big talkers. I call it the faux conservative media. This is Fox News and the Drudge Report, and unfortunately Breitbart in a lot of ways. Some of the major so-called conservative media outlets will feed you the squirrels. They'll feed you the latest fist fight between Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump. They'll talk about Pocahontas and her DNA, speaking of Elizabeth Warren. They'll talk about the NFL. They'll talk about this or that, you know, and none of that matters. They're distracting you from the biggest story in America today, and that is the ratcheting to the left of not only the Republican Party, but the conservative movement. Where is Mark Meadows? Where is Jim Jordan? Where is the Freedom Caucus? Where are all of their talking points? Why aren't they mobilizing their base to tell their base about the criminal justice reform bill, the farm bill, the spending bill, the DACA amnesty legislation that's going to be attached to something, right? Lindsey Graham is still working diligently on including a DACA fix. What is a DACA fix? By Christmas Eve, they're going to essentially include Gang of Eight amnesty legislation by attaching it, I think, to the budget bill. They're gonna threaten the shutdown of the federal government, and it's going to be wrapped around this border fight. And Donald Trump is saying he's going to build the border wall, and he wants funding for the border wall, and he'll get funding, and circa 2045. That's what the legislation is going to look like. But unfortunately, the leadership within the Republican Party, the conservative movement, are just falling asleep at the wheel. They've given up the fight. I'm not sure why. I don't feel despondent about this. I just feel as if we need to admit that truth, and then begin to go about the really hard work of building a new movement. I'm going to go to some of your comments. Christine Caverly has just arrived. Eddie List, rats in the DC, LOL. That is very kind of you, Shannon Joy. I don't know, I was originally going to call them the mice. When the media is away, the mice in Washington, DC will play, meaning they will pass their legislative stockings full of coal. And so I thought it was a little too generous to call the unibrow progressive politicians in DC today mice. I think rats is a little bit more suitable. Maybe that's not very charitable of me this Christmas season, but let me tell you, when you look at what they're passing, it's such a profound betrayal to all of you who voted for Republicans 2 years ago, who voted for Republicans as recent as these recent midterm elections, who voted for Donald Trump, who ran on securing the border, which is completely insecure. He ran on building a wall that was not even started in 2017 or 2018. He ran on dismantling Common Core. Common Core is not only still embedded in every public school, charter school, and most private schools across the nation, it is stronger than ever, and it's getting worse. They plan to merge the Department of Education with the Department of Labor to create an Uber department to oversee every child, their training and education from birth until most likely their natural death. And this is the lie. This is the lie that is being put forth by those educrats who really don't care about kids. They only care about training up skilled, cheap labor for their corporate crony partners and their lobbyists in Washington, D.C. And so here we are, Christmas season, and only a few of us still paying attention. I vow to continue with you guys right till the very end. So if that means I have to do a Facebook Live on Christmas Eve, I'll do a Facebook Live on Christmas Eve. I'm also diligently working to secure our new home. We're very close. It's a kind of a crazy time right now. I am working with all of my current advertisers to present them a new plan on a new radio station to move this operation. Fingers crossed by December 31st. That's the start date that we're looking for. I don't want to make any announcements yet because we don't have things solidified. I'm very optimistic and excited about this deal, but it really is going to depend on whether or not I can bring together all my advertisers and present this new plan to them. And it's a great plan. I'm hoping that they are all going to go for it. But once that's all in place, then I will feel comfortable coming to all of you and making an announcement. But I just want to ask all of you for prayers right now because this is a difficult time. I know that the excitement of getting kicked off the radio station that I used to broadcast from 2.5 weeks ago, out of the blue with absolutely no notice. The reality for my family of being left without 50% of our income on just a day, Saturday at 10:20 in the morning, 2.5 weeks ago, just really the bomb dropped on not only my head, but the heads of my family and also all of my advertisers, the business that we built. And so, it's been a very strange 2.5 weeks. Those first couple days in the first week, I have to admit there was just a lot of adrenaline and a lot of excitement, and everybody was engaged and we were pushing forth. We were doing the Facebook Lives and continuing with the broadcast. You all, your love and your prayers and your support, the donations that you've made to theshannonjoy.com to support me were so appreciated. And, now we're moving into what I'm beginning to understand is kind of a quiet time. And this is when, the frenzy kind of wears off and I have to go about the really hard work, even without every, T being crossed and I being dotted of working with so many moving parts to try to move the station over. And so I'm just going to need discernment. I hope that you all pray for me and pray that I do have that discernment and wisdom when I'm making a lot of these big decisions, but also for endurance. And that's what Dr. Joy got up this morning, and as we're getting very close to finding a new home, and he said, listen, Shannon, you're in, the final quarter of a marathon right now. And you really had, he's like, in the beginning, you had a lot of adrenaline and you were pumped up and you're going to save the show and we're going to do this. And he's like, and now you're really tired and you're really exhausted and you feel overwhelmed and you feel like you can't do it. Sometimes I do. I know all of you feel this way sometimes, that when, challenges present themselves to you and your family, that sometimes you can't do it. And I get those feelings of panic sometimes when I wake up and I think, oh my gosh, I have to do this and this and this, and I have to get back to this person, and I have to arrange this, and I have to think of, the production and the advertisers and the plan, and and nothing is really solid, and it just, it can be exhausting in a way. And so if you can just keep me in your prayers, all of you, for discernment, for wisdom, for some courage, and also endurance, I would so appreciate it. You guys really have gotten me through this really trying time. And in addition to my, my strong faith in the Lord and my love of Jesus Christ, I still to this day, even though I do see that light at the end of the tunnel, I do understand that maybe his will for me is not on the radio. Maybe he has something else that I could never imagine in store for me and my family. And that is a daily prayer for me, to continue to allow myself to be completely engulfed in his will, right? That no matter what it is, even if it's something that maybe I don't think I want, that maybe that's what he wants for me. And so that's my prayer every day. And again, I want to thank all of you. Please consider subscribing to The Shannon Joy Show. You just go to www.theshannonjoy.com. You can get all of my content on the podcast. It's a low subscription, monthly, $2.99 for commercial-free on-demand podcasts. And for those of you who are listening in Utica via 1450 WKAL, thank you so much to the folks over there for continuing. You guys are my first Angel affiliates. The one station that stuck with me after everything blew up 2.5 weeks ago, Ron Frisch and Bob Carter. You guys are angels. You're the best. Thank you. And I promise to continue to fight for this program. I'm going to go and say hello to some of you who have joined. For those of you who are watching right now, if you enjoy the program and you like what we're talking about, please go ahead and share this right now to all your friends and family, your liberty pages, your conservative pages. If you know anyone who likes conservative talk radio or conservative Facebook Live. I don't even know why I call myself conservative anymore. I don't even know what conservative means. I guess I would say I am politically non-binary, liberty and constitution focused, if I were to define myself. Let's see who we have on here. I'm going to look at some of your comments. Rosalind Downer says, it's time for the unvarnished, non-politically correct truth. Thank you, Rosalind Downer. And that's, I think, why most of you guys come and you join me on Facebook Live and on YouTube on a daily basis. It's because you're not afraid of the truth. And sometimes the truth is scary. It's scary to think about the idea that institutions you've trusted for your entire life, right? I grew up listening to Rush Limbaugh. I grew up as a Republican, a conservative. I never voted for anything but Republican in my entire life. And so, you know, after paying attention for a decade, little by little by little, betrayal after betrayal after betrayal, you know, it is scary to think, gosh, if we don't have a vessel to fight progressive Marxists, we don't have a vessel to fight the Democrats. And so people don't want to abandon the Republican Party because it's scary, right? If you don't vote for Republicans, then what's going to happen? Well, Democrats are going to win. And so it's an act of courage to remove yourself from that vessel and try to find something new and to chart out a new path. But that has to happen. There is no saving the Republican Party, in my opinion. And I think that more and more people are beginning to understand this. There are more voices out there who understand this. Matt Walsh made a profound statement about the pro-life movement. He said yesterday in a tweet that the Republican Party is not pro-life. They are essentially pro-choice. Matt Walsh is a contributor on the Daily Wire. That is Ben Shapiro's outlet, and he's absolutely right. But you're seeing voices, Steve Deace and Todd and Aaron over on the Blaze TV. For 2019, their mission is no bull. Their mission is unvarnished truth. And so even though you might not like Glenn Beck, or maybe you don't like Mark Levin, what you can be assured of over at the Blaze is that they are allowing voices like Steve Deace's and Daniel Horowitz. These folks are contrarian. They will criticize the Republican Party. They will criticize Donald Trump. And those voices are important. So even though we think we're alone, we're betrayed by the Freedom Caucus, we're betrayed even by Ted Cruz, remember, as long as there is one person standing, as long as there is a remnant of that liberty movement still viable, then we can build something new. And this is why supporting one another, those of you who support me and push this program out, those of you who are supporting David Leach at the Strident Conservative, and Joe Walsh and the Blaze, Steve Deace, Daniel Horowitz, Phil Williams, all of these voices are so important. It's important that we are connected, that we are together, that we are supporting each other. And I promise you, we can build a new liberty movement. The first step, though, is admitting that the old movement is dead. That's really the hardest part. Robert L. Carr is here. He said, Shannon! Exclamation point. Thank you for being here. And, oh, I lost him. What was your comment? Okay, I lost his comment. That's okay. Who else do we have here? Lynn Taylor has joined. Hey, Lynn Taylor is the Common Core diva. She is another one of those voices out there, guys, that is not afraid to criticize both Republicans and Democrats and this Republican president. She's the Common Core diva. You can find her at commoncorediva.com. She's also on Facebook as Lynn Taylor. She's also on Twitter. She does the best research on education. So I've told you all often that I rely upon Daniel Horowitz to actually read these monstrous bills that come out of Washington, D.C. and actually pull out the important information. Lynn Taylor is the Daniel Horowitz of education. She reads the education bills, the ESSA bills, the No Child Left Behind bills, the Common Core legislation. Lynn is the girl to go to, and sometimes she goes over my head. I've told her before, I go onto her website and I look at certain bills, and this woman is truly brilliant. She understands the big picture when it comes to education in terms of globalization, in terms of labor, legislation, and she gets the big picture. She's done an enormous amount of research. She's a lady that I have been with now for almost 5 years in the battle to set public schools, private schools, and charter schools free from the tentacles of the federal government. I love to give you guys resources, people that you can go to, that you can find for good information, not just relying on me, because quite frankly, I might not be here forever, right? So it's important that we find so many sources. And Lynn Taylor, the Common Core diva, girlfriend, you are the best. You are the best. Rosalind Downer is with us. Robert L. Carr said, did you call L'Oreal as a hair care sponsor? I guess my hair looks kind of good today. It's kind of fluffy. I notice on my Facebook lives. So for those of you who are listening on WKAL, Facebook Live, it's video as well. So everyone can see me. And that's very different for a radio girl. I'm typically used to like slapping on a hat, not doing my makeup, running to the studio, doing the show unless I have client meetings, and then I'll doll myself up a little bit. But for Facebook Live and YouTube, now that I'm doing all the embedded video, I actually have to put myself together every day. And I am just hair challenged. I don't like my hair and it never really looks the way. It's a little bit wild and it's curly. It gets really frizzy. But I've also noticed that during the course of my Facebook Live, like when I first start after I spray all of my, actually, you know what? L'Oreal, this is my hairspray. There you go, Robert. L'Oreal is a sponsor of this broadcast because this is the hairspray that I use. But so I spray my hair and I fluff it up, and it always looks so good when I start the Facebook Live. And then I get going and I start sweating and I get excited, and then like halfway through the video, my hair gets flatter and flatter and flatter, and by the end of it, I look like a drowned rat. And so I don't know how they do it on network television. I mean, they must spray an enormous amount of hairspray in it, just like, because, you know, the ladies on TV, their hair never moves. It just stays exactly where it is. I don't know how they do that. So Emmett Brown has a question for me. Hi, Emmett. I'm glad you're here. He says, how long are the podcasts? So Emmett, I'm committing to 1 hour a day. Right now, I'm hoping to move once I solidify the new flagship station. I'm looking to do an hour live on air on 2 or 3 radio stations here in the region, but I'm also going to broadcast that live through Facebook as well. So those of you who are watching me right now, when we move over to the radio station, I'm going to move this operation with me. So the computer comes, the Facebook Live, and you guys will see me in the studio doing the radio show every day. Afterwards, I'm going to move over to YouTube, or not YouTube, we're going to move over to a new system, and we are going to continue on theshannonjoy.com, and that will be for subscribers only. It will be an additional half hour to 45 minutes of content every day where I'll answer your questions. We'll delve into topics a little deeper, and that will be something for subscribers only. So that gives you added value for your subscription. Not only do you get the show at your leisure on demand every day, commercial free, you will also get that added content. And so the live show will be free every day for everyone. The podcast and on-demand listening will be just for subscribers, and also the additional content will be for subscribers only. So I'm hoping to get, you all know that I've been trying to get to 2 hours for a really long time, mainly because I just fly through the content. There is so much going on, and there's so little coverage about the actual legislation, what's actually happening in DC, that, I found that an hour is just not long enough to get through all of the content. And so we've been trying to get to 2 hours for quite some time. I think that with this new partnership, fingers crossed, that we'll be able to do that by the first of the year. But seriously, guys, keep me in prayers. Make sure you reach out to my advertisers right now, because right now I am working on their contracts, getting them signed up for 2019, and they have to hear from you. They have been generous enough to hold on to their budgets now for 3 weeks, but at some point that money just gets frittered away, and they move it, to another, a TV station, or maybe some online advertising, or maybe some other radio advertising. And so the velocity of the move is really important. And in order to encourage them to continue to support this audience and my program, I cannot tell you how much they love to hear from you. So, if you are in the, if you are, you have the time and the energy, giving them a call is always helpful. I want to thank my advertisers real quickly before I forget. We're going to move on to some other topics in just a minute, but Dr. Liz and Trish over at Hellendale Dermatology. They are amazing. They're sticking with me. The folks at the Ide family of dealerships, Dom Polano at PCM and Associates, my friend Paul at Livingston County Pizza Company, my friend Jeff Schofield, who is Rochester's biggest realtor. He's so amazing, such a good friend. Who else do we have here? The Goddard School. They've been with me for such a long time. Gary and Nan over at the Goddard School also. Finney, the Finney School, it's a Christian school here in New York. They're amazing. Advantage Federal Credit Union and Diane, she's awesome. I'm gonna make sure I haven't forgotten anyone, but that's just a couple. If you guys wanna give them a call, let them know. Make sure you ask for the owner. Ask for the owner or the marketing director, and even more importantly than calling and thanking them, see about maybe, you know, patronizing their business. Gino Marcello at Sleep City is one of my favorite people in the world. I've worked with him for so long, and he sells mattresses. So go over and talk to Gino. I think he's in Henrietta today, and either thank him or better yet, buy a mattress from him, right? So let's move on. For those of you who are watching and just joining us now, I'm Shannon Joy. This is the Shannon Joy radio program, broadcast live today from Facebook. We also broadcast from YouTube, but we're also being carried on WKAL 1450 Utica, Rome. Our Angel affiliates who stuck with us through the tumult, thank you guys so much. And to all of your audience, thank you for being with us. Today, we are talking about the legislative stocking full of coal and all the nastiness that's coming out of Washington, D.C. Most people aren't paying attention to it because most of faux conservative media is either on vacation or just talking about nonsense that really doesn't matter to you, but there's a lot of nasty stuff happening on my radar and what should be on your radar. A massive, massive spending bill that funds the entirety of the Obama administration signature legislation. We're looking at a major DACA amnesty bill. This is being crafted by Lindsey Graham. He's going to slap that in there at the last minute. They will legalize millions of illegals here in the U.S. with the promise of border wall funding probably somewhere around 2045. So that's going to be coming in the next couple weeks. The Jailbreak, aka First Step Act criminal justice deform, is making its way quickly through the House and the Senate, making its way to the president's desk. And I'm going to tell you about that in just a minute because it's even worse than we thought. Also the Farm Bill, which is a fait accompli. Daniel Horowitz wrote this up in Conservative Review. I'm going to reference his piece right now. Daniel Horowitz, an American treasure is what I call him. But this piece is entitled The Sorry Socialist State of the Farm Bill. And in this piece, Daniel Horowitz likens the Farm Bill that was just passed by the Senate. Unfortunately, it was voted for by Ted Cruz, who would never have voted for these type of farm bills in the past. I don't know what happened to him. Another one bites the dust. That's going to have to be my theme song. Once I get in a radio station, I get good bumper music. We're going to start using Another One Bites the Dust because, man, they drop like flies, these conservatives in Washington, D.C. But according to Daniel Horowitz, Stalin had his 5-year plans to socially engineer land use, agriculture, and the economy. We have our 5-year farm bills. It sounds so nice when they call it a farm bill, like, oh, we're going to take care of the farmers. That's not what this is. And it's so bad, like I said, that Daniel Horowitz in Conservative Review is likening it to Stalin's 5-year agricultural plans. According to Daniel Horowitz, Republicans are passing yet another nanny state farm bill that bankrupts the nation, distorts agriculture and land use markets, creates a monopoly for wealthy interests, and nationalizes our agriculture. And this is par for the course. This is what they did to the banking industry, 100 years ago. This is what they did to the healthcare industry so many years ago. This is what they've done to education. The idea is to break apart the private market, make it impossible for private, small to medium-sized entities to exist, make it virtually impossible for them to turn a profit, and then reel them in with government subsidy. That government subsidy then is always attached to social engineering or government initiatives. So in order to get the grant money, in order to get the subsidy, in order to get the tax write-off, you have to comply with the central planners in Washington, D.C. These type of bills, they roll them out slowly. They don't do this in a short period of time. They do this over time, and really it's the progressive march. They've been doing this now for 100 years, and they do it industry by industry by industry. And now what you're looking at with the passage of these kinds of farm bills, the intent here is to nationalize food production. So at some point, get ready for food prices to skyrocket for regular Americans. All of a sudden, a loaf of bread is $10, $15. The country cries out and asks for relief. And then what does the federal government do? Well, oh, so sorry. Sorry, we destroyed all of the small to medium-sized farmers and handed over the farmland to large farming corporations, global farming corporations like Monsanto. So sorry we did that. That resulted in really high food prices. And what do you end up with? Essentially, they want to put every single American on food stamps. That's really the end goal. In the same way that the criminal justice reform bill is designed to bring every local sheriff's office, every local police department under the jurisdiction of the federal planners, in the same way, that's what these farm bills do. This is the unibrow. This is the coming together. Republicans and Democrats will always work together to destroy the private sector, destroy the small to medium-sized producers, and then once they're destroyed, hustle them in to the government infrastructure, essentially turning them into arms of the government. They raise the prices, and then everyone is thankful for the subsidy. This is really what we're seeing right now with Obamacare, right? What did they do? They destroyed the private market for insurance and rewarded a handful of major mega insurance companies, thus establishing, the insurance cartel. What happens when you have a cartel? Prices skyrocket. It makes it so that no one can afford health insurance. And so now every American has to use some sort of government subsidy, some sort of government entity in order to get even basic, affordable health care. But you have to, you can't get that healthcare unless you give up all of your information to the mega database, unless you comply with all sorts of regulations. You have to submit your kids for the government mandated vaccines. You have to jump through this hoop and that hoop. And this is the control mechanism. This is how they do it. It's almost as if they're building the trap around us, and they're building it so slowly that no one can really see it. And they're doing it in every industry, but people are so categorized in their industry of interest, right? Some people really focus on gun control. Some people really focus on the life issue. Some people really focus on education or on agriculture. Some people are border hawks. Some people are national security hawks. And we all have these narrow spheres of interest. And what we don't realize is that all of those things, the planners at the top, all of those things are being wielded against us. They're working in all of those different areas, and they're building the same trap. And the longer that we continue to allow ourselves to be divided between D and R over stupid things, the more powerful they get, the more difficult it is for us to defeat their plans. The answer is to battle them from the outside in. I believe that Washington, D.C. is dead. There will be no solutions from D.C. There are no solutions, no reform from the Republican or Democrat parties. I think we're going to have to build outside liberty movements. They're going to have to be rooted in local communities and local states, and we're going to have to battle them and resist them from the outside. And that first step of resistance really is going to be rejecting federal grants, rejecting state grants, rejecting subsidies, rejecting the largesse of the federal government, so that we can begin to get lean and mean and become self-sufficient. And it's going to be difficult, but I think it's absolutely doable. Local governments only get about 20 or 30% of their funding from federal and state entities. Most of their funding in local governments come from their local property taxes. So it's absolutely doable. We need to elect people locally, zoning board, school board, town board, planning board, and at the state level, who understand the larger picture and understand what their role is as a local leader, and that they have to resist that funding in order to fight the control, right? When they give you the money, they have the control. Everyone knows this, right? Have you ever, every kid who ever got kicked out of their parents' house when they were 18 or 19 years old, right? Because, well, if you're living under my roof and I'm paying for your food and I'm paying for your shelter, then you got to do what I say. Everyone gets this concept. If they control it with the money, if they're giving you money, then there are always strings attached. If you want to be free, you have to reject the subsidy. And That's always their play, though, right? It's always their play. So the sorry socialist state of the Farm Bill. We're talking about the legislative stockings full of coal and what's in them. This is a piece by Daniel Horowitz. The Farm Bill, he likens it to Stalin's 5-year plans, his agricultural plans. And just a few snippets, according to Daniel Horowitz, there is so much awful about this Farm Bill, but just number one, endless welfare without enough work requirements. Also, he in the bill making crop insurance like dysfunctional medical insurance. Do you see how they use the same tactics and techniques that they use to destroy private healthcare? They're using the exact same techniques to destroy food production, local food producers across America. They're doing everything they can to put those small to medium-sized farmers out of business, either out of business or to make them recipients of government subsidy, because then essentially the government controls them. The 2014 Farm Bill created 2 new market-distorting price-fixing programs to cover shallow loss: the price loss coverage, which is the PLC, and agriculture risk coverage. In addition, so this is going to be expanded in this new Farm Bill. Also, crop insurance for non-farmers. The bill allows first cousins, nephews, and nieces of farmers to receive up to $125,000 in annual farm subsidies, even if they are not farmers themselves, but have some nebulously managerial involvement in the business, which is undefined by the bill. It also allows corporate farms owned by those earning more than $1.8 million as a married couple to funnel subsidies through other associates and relatives. This bill encourages the paying of landowners to buy, monopolize, and not even farm. This is in additional parochial handouts. This bill increases direct subsidies for dairy farmers and even offers cash rebates. It's like a bad sales pitch. Cash rebates for those who participated in an expiring program. Representative Colin Peterson aptly explained the handouts for dairy farmers, saying, "Under what we have in this bill, you will not be able to lose money unless you really try." After finding a way to subsidize, and this is the general conclusion of Daniel Horowitz. This is on the Marxist Communist Farm Bill that was passed by the Senate yesterday. Only opposed by 13 Republicans. It was voted by 100% of Democrats, thus exposing the Unibrow that we've been talking about for so many years on my radio program. This is his final conclusion about this disastrous Farm Bill. After finding a way to subsidize, manipulate, and monopolize every commodity under the sun, Section 12.613 creates a report for the establishment of a natural stone research and promotion board that will study whether to add stones to the list of agricultural commodities promoted by the government. Leave no stone unturned means leave no subsidy unturned. The bill comes off the backdrop of tariffs that are killing soybean farmers, thereby engendering a separate $12 billion special subsidy in addition to premium support. See, they put the soybean farmers out of business, right? All those contracts went to Russia, by the way. 3-year contracts between China and Russia because of the soybean tariff axes that Donald Trump imposed. So they destroy the soybean farmers, and then they say, "Oh, we're so sorry here. Why don't you take this government subsidy? By the way, you can't plant this, you can plant that, you have to plant this. We have all kinds of land use requirements now in order to get those subsidies." It's just awful. So here we go. We over subsidize and over encourage land use to overproduce, then screw them on tariffs, then subsidize them. As Ronald Reagan says, if it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. And if it stops moving, subsidize it. That's what they're doing. That is the long and short of the Farm Bill. I want to encourage all of you who are interested in that. A lot of this rolls right into the Agenda 21 crap, all of the policies and initiatives and legislation meant to control land use. This is part and parcel of that. The sorry socialist state of the Farm Bill, Daniel Horowitz and Conservative Review. I'm going to go and say hello to a couple of you who have joined. Who do we have here? Mark Helms has joined. Hey, Mark, how are you? Emmett Brown is with us. Amnesty equals GOP is finished. Well, Emmett, that will require conservative big talkers in the conservative media to actually tell their constituency that amnesty happened. I assure you, if a mass amnesty occurs on Christmas Eve, Rush Limbaugh will tell his audience that the wall is being built. That's the way he's going to spin it. He won't talk about the millions of illegals who are legalized. He won't talk about the mass amnesty. He'll say, oh, look at this, Trump got his wall. He won't tell you the fact that Trump won't get his wall until 2045 or beyond. He won't tell you all of those details. And so, unfortunately, the conservative movement will continue to stumble along in the darkness, thinking that Donald Trump is somehow conservative when really he is no better than a progressive liberal from New York City. And let me tell you, I'm from New York. It takes one New Yorker to know a New York con man, and that is what Donald Trump is. I'm absolutely convinced. The longer we fall for it, I mean, I hate to say it, that we've got a bunch of chumps in our movement who just can't see the con, but I'm more convinced than ever, and we've been watching him very closely. Jennifer Harris said, my rep here in Texas never votes for the omnibus bills, and he did not vote for the farm bill yesterday. Don't know what Cruz's problem is. I don't think Ted Cruz has ever voted for one of these Marxist farm bills. And you would think here he is coming off of a victory. He has 6 years before re-election. This is the time when he could go back to being the warrior that we have all known and loved. And he just comes in and bill after bill after bill, nasty Obama legislation empowering bills. Ted Cruz continues to vote for them. I don't know what happened. It's a heartbreak. We should all be heartbroken. But let me tell you, Chip Roy is sometimes I feel like as long as we have one or two or three, if we just have a couple stalwarts who can push out some of this information from Washington, D.C., understanding that eventually they'll be corrupted and eventually they'll fall by the wayside, as long as we can just continue to shove through these people under the radar, we can still continue to get some truth. And so I am encouraged by Chip Roy. He is out there really hammering the Republican Party, and I'm glad for that. He just won in Texas. He is a Texas congressman, and he's pretty awesome. All right, let's see what else we have here. For those of you who are listening on WKAL, I'm on Facebook Live, broadcasting from Facebook Live, and if it sounds a little different, it's because I'm talking to the community here on Facebook. They join the program. I can see when they join. I can say hello, and they can also comment, and I can answer their questions. Carrie Gordon has joined us. Carrie Gordon is another truth teller. He's amazing. He's out of Iowa. He's a pastor. He's a producer. He has a platform, and man, does he tell the truth about what is going on in the evangelical community. He's working on a feature film, a full-length documentary on the progressive infiltration into the evangelical church. His work is so, so important. Carrie Gordon, I owe you a phone call too. We need to talk, but he's another one, guys. A lot of them are consolidated in Iowa. Surrounding a couple of key figures. Let me tell you, the movement is there, guys. The liberty movement is there. The constitutional movement is there. We're all separated right now. We need to find each other. Chuck Tiza says, I think my head is going to explode. I can always guarantee with my broadcast that I will make your blood pressure rise, hopefully not too high, and hopefully at the end we can be encouraged and empowered. My goal here is not to get you riled up and angry and send you away without any recourse. The goal is always to encourage all of you. We need about 17 or 18 more Daniel Horowitzes out there, people who read bills and research and put it out onto social media. We need more Lynn Taylors, Common Core Divas. We need more David Leaches. If you can start a podcast, if you can get active on social media, if you can begin to push out content, we need as many of you out there to begin to do that, coming together. Let me know what you're doing. I'll help you push out your platform as best I can, in the same way that Daniel Horowitz and Steve Deace have been so helpful to me in pushing out my platform. I am looking for, I know we're all looking for, as many conservative, liberty-oriented warriors as we can find out there. And So the idea here is to encourage you and empower you. Resistance to this tyranny is going to look different for every person. Some of you might be in a season in your life where you're not financially secure. Maybe you're having problems in your family. Maybe you're having problems with your kids, and you just aren't in a position right now to start a blog or start a YouTube channel or join town hall or go to the meetings. Maybe right now your only mission in terms of resistance is maybe to find your Constitution again and read it. Maybe it's to read your Declaration of Independence. Maybe it's to get into your Bible again. I've been doing chronological reading of my Bible, both Old and New Testament at the same time. And oh my gosh, you guys, the wealth of information, the amount of wisdom coming out of Proverbs, all of these Old Testament chapters or Old Testament scriptures, and reading it along the Gospels of Jesus Christ and alongside the New Testament, it opens your mind up in a million different ways. Maybe that's your first step, is to reignite your faith in God. Maybe it's to find him again and to begin to build up that courage. Maybe you just need to put your life together so that at some point you can go out and you can join us in this battle for liberty. It doesn't take that many, honestly. The major movements throughout history really were driven by small minorities on either side of the political spectrum. Really, 10% on the progressive side and 10% on the liberty side. And everyone in the middle, all of the masses, as people like to call them, but it really is, there are a lot of people who just kind of go along to get along, and they don't really care if they live under tyranny or liberty a whole lot. They don't really pay attention, and quite frankly, they never will. It's those who are active on either side of that spectrum, who are fighting for hearts and minds in that middle. Those are the folks who can make a world of difference. So I want to encourage all of you to not give up. We don't crawl into the fetal position, not this audience and not me. We continue to push forward. We continue to fight for that liberty, constitutional vision, and you do the best you can. A lot of it is just giving it up to God too, right? He has a plan. He's in control of all of this, and our job is simply to use all of the gifts and the talents that we've been given by our Creator to glorify him and to move forth his agenda, right? Not a global agenda, not a national agenda, not the Republican agenda or the progressive agenda, but his agenda. And so who else do we have here on Facebook Live? We're getting, oh dear, we're about 3 minutes away from the conclusion of the program. Like I said, my hair is much flatter now than it was when we started. I'm going to have to get some better hairspray from L'Oreal, but Rosalind Downer, progressive techniques, rules for radicals. That's right. I learned all about progressive techniques. If you want to understand the techniques of the progressive, there are a few things that you should read. Number one, Machiavelli, The Prince, is a good place to start. Number two, Sun Tzu, Art of War, is one of the great, battle books, but also Saul Alinsky. We're all familiar with Saul Alinsky. I have read Rules for Radicals twice, not because I agree with the Marxist Saul Alinsky, who dedicated Rules for Radical to none other than Lucifer, aka the devil, aka Satan, right? But essentially it was a manifesto on how to community organize from the bottom up. It's interesting. Progressives understand how important local activism is. Conservatives and Republicans never seem to get that. They never seem to make that connection. And they will focus all our attention on national issues, national politicians, national organizations, while omitting any discussion or any type of education on how to organize locally in your own community. And so we're at a great disadvantage because the left is very organized locally and in localities across the country. We are not, so we have catch up to do there. But yes, Saul Alinsky, if you want to know the devious tactics of the left and the progressives, absolutely read Rules for Radicals. Joy Kamensky has joined. Hey girl, how are you? Love your name, right? You have the first one. I have the last one. Who else do we have? Courtney is with us. Kim Baxley is with us. Who else do we have here? Patrick Carlin, a devil known is better than a devil not known. And I agree with you, Patrick. We have to admit, this is the first step. It's like any addict. If you are struggling with an addiction, the first step to moving forward is to admitting you have a problem. And so the first step to begin the new fight for liberty, our Constitution, our founding documents, the miraculous document that built this great nation to what it is today, we're struggling right now. I think we all understand that we're struggling right now, but the first step in moving this country back to a place of peace and prosperity is to admit that both political parties are fundamentally corrupt. They are fundamentally broken. They cannot save us. In addition, those two parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, work together. They are on the same team. They work together in tandem. Most of what we see in Washington, D.C. is kabuki theater. It's WWE wrestling. It is fake. And once we understand that, and more Americans, as long as you are liberty focused, liberty centered, you believe that each and every individual has the right to live their life in the way that they choose to live their life. They have a right to keep their income. They have a right to support themselves free of government subsidy or largesse. If you believe in those founding principles, those constitutional principles that were laid out in our Bill of Rights and in the Constitution, then, you know, this is the new movement. This is where we build the new movement out of. But the first step is rejecting those two parties. I call them the Unibrow. So does Daniel Horowitz today or yesterday in his podcast. And if I didn't believe it, I wouldn't say it. And I believe it. I believe it to be the truth. And I think that is going to have to conclude the program, guys. We ran out of time. I do have to keep it. I could go a little bit longer, but I have to keep it to right around an hour today because I have an appointment with an advertiser, and I'm going to present to them the new plan, and hopefully they're going to sign on to it, and we're going to usher ourselves into a new chapter for this radio program, a new home for this wonderful audience, for my radio show, a place where we can begin to grow again. I think we're going to be stronger. We're going to be healthier at this new arrangement. So I'm just asking all of you for your prayers. We did not get to jailbreak today. We didn't get to the really disgusting provisions in the criminal justice reform bill that were released by Daniel Horowitz today. So I will make sure that we do that tomorrow. We will continue from Facebook Live tomorrow. YouTube is working, but it's a little too hard to build up those views. So on Facebook Live, we'll get, 2,000 views, as many as 3,000 or 4,000, depending on the broadcast. On YouTube, like I said, YouTube is like an oasis in a desert, and it's massive, and building an audience is just really hard, especially when I can't embed that content yet from YouTube onto Facebook and Twitter. Really, the power of this audience is centralized in Twitter and in Facebook. And so I want to make sure that we're continuing, that I'm still talking to you guys and you're able to access this in a really easy way. For those of you who are subscribers to the Shannon Joy Show, this will be uploaded. This broadcast will be uploaded on theshannonjoy.com. You can listen to it at your leisure. You can pause it. You can fast forward. You don't have to listen to commercials. And that's all available at theshannonjoy.com. Low monthly subscription of $2.99 a month. Also, for those of you, like I said, I am still completely listener supported. So we have good things happening, but your donations are still really important. So if you feel moved to do it, go ahead to theshannonjoy.com and click on the little donation button in the right-hand corner of the page, and every single amount is appreciated. And for those of you who have donated, for those of you who have subscribed, thank you, thank you, thank you. And thanks for being with me today. To my listeners at WKAL 1450 in Utica, thank you guys so much. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow as well, and we will continue it again tomorrow on The Shannon Joy Show.